How does a man with everything lose it all? It starts with a smile as smooth as a lie. In Lagos, a city that never sleeps, the rich hide their loneliness behind chandeliers and champagne. Tonight, beneath all that glitter, one man's test will decide if loyalty still means anything. Across from him sat the only man whose gaze he couldn't buy, Chief Azubuik, a self-made patriarch, the kind of billionaire who still counts cost before counting applause. Chief ate slowly, as if time itself worked for him. David didn't. His eyes had already drifted past the leather-bound menu to a young woman gliding between tables. Quick hands, neat afro bun, and a coral bead bracelet that clicked softly like punctuation to a story only she could finish. "Good evening, sirs," she said with a professional bow. "Are you ready to order?" Chief lifted his head. "Yes. Oha soup and fish." David tapped the menu shut. "Fried rice, turkey, and your number on the side." The girl's lips tilted, somewhere between amused and insulted. "I can bring the rice and turkey, sir," she replied. "The last item isn't on the menu." Chief's eyes did not move, but the air around his silence changed temperature. David chuckled, unbothered. Charm had always been his first language. He spent it carelessly. "Your name?" he asked. "Rose," she said. "Beautiful. I'm David. That man pretending not to hear us?" He jabbed a thumb at Chief. "My father." She inclined her head. "I'll be right back with your order." Now, people in rooms like this think privacy is bought with mahogany and rose gold cutlery. It isn't. Privacy is a rumor that survives on tips, and the staff had plenty tonight. At the service station, a senior waitress cut Rose a look. "Don't let his smile fool you," she warned, stacking plates. Every week, it's a new girl. Same curves, same charm, same story. He'll make it rain, then disappear. Rose hesitated, kindness tugging her toward giving a stranger the benefit of the doubt. "Maybe he's changed," she murmured. "He introduced me to his father." The older woman snorted. "My dear, some men hide the lie in daylight." Back at the table, Chief sipped water, then set the glass down with the care of a judge setting down a verdict. "Did you come here to eat?" he asked, "or audition for scandal?" David grinned. "Why choose? I'm a modern man." "No," Chief said, voice low. "You're a distracted man." Let me tell you something about distraction. It always looks like a friend until it starts counting your losses. If you watch David closely, you'd see the pattern. The hunger sharpened by applause. The leap toward whatever glittered. But appetites have long shadows, and his had begun to stretch over his future. Dinner arrived. Rose placed the bowls with gentle precision. Chief thanked her. David winked. He flirted. She parried. He boasted. She smiled. Polite, distant. Then duty called her away, and the two men were alone with steam rising from soup like ghosts of untold warnings. Chief broke his bread with deliberate patience. "You think I want to be your enemy," he said. "I don't. I want to be the last person on earth who tells you the truth, which is, you don't control your desires. Your desires control you." David's laugh came too quick. "Dad, I close deals worth billions. I manage teams older than me. Please, deals are easier than discipline," Chief replied softly. "A company doesn't crumble in public. It begins to rot in private, in the places shareholders can't see, where a man trades focus for fantasy. and spends his strength on applause. For a moment, David's gaze flickered. Then the mask returned. "You worry too much." Chief's stare held him. "I worry exactly enough." Outside, Lagos night unrolled like velvet. When they left, David drifted through the entrance like a yacht, cutting water, phone already in his palm, mind already plotting his next performance. He'd promised Rose a call. He dialed, then cancelled. The game, the chase, was half the thrill. On the service road, he slowed his car beside a young woman waiting under a street light, her perfume drifting like a dare. Sonia, another beautiful chapter in a long book he refused to finish. He offered a ride. She accepted. Before the moon could register the trade, they were gone, swallowed by the city's lights. Now, this is the part where a storyteller might judge. I won't. Judgment is easy. Truth is patient. And the truth is this: David wasn't evil. He was empty. The kind of empty that riches decorate but cannot fill. He mistook motion for meaning. He confused being wanted with being known. And like many who grew up inside walls built by money, he thought comfort was the same as safety. Morning arrived with the scent of fresh bread and conflict. In the Azubuike mansion, marble floors carried every footstep like a witness. Rita, the long-suffering housekeeper, shuffled past the hallway with a tray. Sonia had left early, head high, eyes haunted by a familiar disappointment. David stretched lazily at the table, the picture of a man who believed the world would always wake up waiting for him. Chief entered in a crisp linen shirt. No thunder, just weather changing. "Join me for lunch today?" he said, scrolling through his tablet. "Can't," David replied. "Something came up." "What came up has been coming up for years," Chief said, eyes never leaving the screen. "Sit, eat." They stared at each other across an ocean called father and son. Sometimes love is a hand, sometimes it is a wall. Today, it would be both. After breakfast, they drove to the headquarters of Azubuike Group, a glass and steel sermon about ambition. In the boardroom, Leo waited already, Chief's nephew and David's quiet rival. Where David sparkled, Leo studied. Where David entered rooms like a sun, Leo entered like a shadow that knew every light switch. Chief spoke without flourish. "I retire at the end of October," he said. "Chairman and CEO, one of you will succeed me." The sentence fell like a gate. David swallowed. He'd been groomed for this, hadn't he? He knew the operations, the production numbers, the market expansions. Between parties, he had actually worked. Leo inclined his head, respectful, eyes unreadable. Chief rested his knuckles on the table. "You are both qualified. But leadership is more than numbers. It is restraint. It is patience." His gaze cut to David. "It is the ability to say no to yourself before you say yes to the world." Pride is a poor listener. David's back stiffened. "If you're handing it to him," he said, chin flicking toward Leo, "say it plain." "I'm offering it," Chief replied, "to the man who proves he can lead himself." "And how would I prove that?" David asked, heat rising. Chief nodded once, as if cueing a verdict he'd long rehearsed. "A contract," he said. 90 days. No women, no affairs, no scandals. Focus. Deliver the strategic plan on schedule. Attend therapy twice a week. Lead the executive meetings without a single personal incident. Do that, and the company is yours. Silence pressed its hand to the glass walls. Somewhere, a city sighed. David laughed first, short, sharp, unbelieving. You want me to be celibate for 3 months. I want you to be free for 3 months, Chief said. You think your freedom is the right to touch everything you want. Real freedom is the power to walk away from what will destroy you. That line, remember it. It isn't just for David. Leo finally spoke, gentle as a scalpel. If this is the standard, he said, I accept it as well. Let the best man win. David flinched. Leo's calm was an insult, a mirror he didn't want to face. This is ridiculous, he snapped to Chief. You're humiliating me. I'm warning you, Chief answered, and I'm giving you an out. What out? If you won't do it, Chief said, sliding a document across the table. Walk away. Start your own company. Take your contacts, your pride, and your appetite. But you won't take my life's work with you. There are moments when a man meets the edge of himself. He can retreat into his old room with old excuses, or he can step forward and discover who he might become. David reached for the pen. His hand trembled, not with fear, but with fury at having to choose. Before ink could stain the page, the boardroom door opened. A woman stepped in, tall, athletic, calm as a drawn bow. No jewelry beyond a slim watch, no performance. Her presence arranged the air. Apologies, sir, she said to Chief, voice low but steady. Security confirmed. Reporting for assignment. Kiki Lawal, protection detail. Chief gestured to the chair by the wall. Your post begins now. David blinked. My what begins now? Chief's gaze held his son's and did not waver. If you accept the contract, you don't walk it alone. You walk it with your shadow. He turned slightly. Miss Lawal will be with you at work, at home, in public, anywhere temptation masquerades as invitation. She answers only to me. The city outside the glass moved on, unaware that a battlefield had just been mapped inside one man's life. Kiki took her position, upright, professional, the kind of quiet that reveals strength rather than fear. David felt heat crawl up his neck. Was this a test or a trap? He looked at Kiki, then at the paper, then at the future hanging above the table like a chandelier that could shatter at a whisper. I won't tell you what he signed. Not yet. Stories must breathe to stay alive, and suspense is the oxygen of transformation. But I will leave you with this. Some walls are built of brick. The worst are built of habit. And if a man cannot say no to himself, life will start saying no to him on bigger stages, to be continued. This was only episode 1. The story continues in the next episode, where choices bring consequences and truth begins to surface. Click the next video to continue the journey. If this episode moved you, please like the video so it reaches more hearts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to African Tales by Nina for the next chapter in this unfolding story. I'll see you in episode 2. Until then, stay blessed.